Well, we right now in our culture are experiencing so much more trauma than we ever have. And our traumas can come from a variety of sources, but we're feeling them now economically, with the economy doing what it's doing, what's happening in Russia with the invasion of their neighbor. Many people are working from home, and they're saying that they have a lot more arguments and so on. And then with all this stress, that creates a lot more physical symptoms and illnesses, because we learned back in the late 80s, the New England Journal of Medicine submitted an article of some research that showed that stress contributes to 80 to 90% of all of our symptoms. And so there's a lot of anxiety and stress that's going on in the world today. And it's spread around in so many ways. Then people are worried about their kids and how they're going to do with school or with relationships, and they can't go to the kind of playgrounds or places to play like they used to. And so on the stress goes. And so that's something that most humans now don't have new tools or ways of reducing that, because we've never had to deal with it in the past before, so much stress at one time. Well, when we are stressed, that falls us into a pattern of thoughts which are largely kind of worry thoughts or anxious thoughts. We worry about the future. What will happen? Will this happen? Will that happen? Will somebody do this? Will somebody not do that? Will I have enough money or when I retire, and so on. So we use our thoughts to stir up a lot more stress and a lot more fear and a lot more anxiety. That means we're going to have a lot more physical symptoms if we do that, because that creates symptoms. If that contributes to 80 to 90% of all symptoms, it's going to be a huge increase in the number of symptoms that people will have, unless they have the tools that they can use to reduce that stress. And one thing I find is that if people can just begin to be conscious of their breath work more, if they can begin to realize that if I'm breathing in oxygen and sending that up with deep breaths to my brain, I'm calming down the cortisol and adrenaline, which are the survival hormones that the caveman needed to run from a tiger to get to the cave to save his life. And so we're having ourselves reacting in a similar fashion out of that same kind of fear and anxiety and stress. And so that means we have more fear thoughts about the future. And all that does is create more stress, which creates more tension and more illness, and disturbs our relationships more. So we need to really work on having tools that we use to reduce that stress. And like I said, one is that deep breathing. Another, even if I just add counting to that breathing, can help. Like inhale 2, 3, 4, 5, and exhale 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 or 7. More counts that way. And because I'm focusing on breathing and focusing on the counting, there's not room in my brain to be harboring those worry thoughts and those fear thoughts anymore. So it's one tool that we can all use to reduce stress significantly. And there's no harm in ever getting more oxygen to the brain. It just calms down the cortisol and adrenaline, which stresses us out more if we keep it. So that's one way of being kind to ourselves and taking care of ourselves now. But then the other part is, so much of what we find stressful has to do with our early programming. They say we form our personalities by age 5. And who of us remembers more than 2 or 3 things prior to age 5? But what we do is we are downloading things from our parents. If one or more of them or both of them, we're arguing more, or if one of them tends to be more critical, or one tends to be more judging, or one tends to be more pressuring, and that kind of thing. We take that stuff in and put it as part of our own programming, and then treat ourselves and others the same way. And that just creates more stress and tension in our lives. Then now there are tools that are available that we can actually deactivate those old programmings in our lives. And I'm just so grateful that they're now in the field of psychotherapy, that we can deactivate those encodings of information in our survival brain. And therefore we can see things differently and not have as much stress going into our bodies. Certainly if you'd like to learn more about these methods or these tools or the combinations of them and how they work, I'll be glad to talk with you about it. You could contact me by phone or by email, or you could call me and we can make an appointment or 2 and we could discuss it more in relation to your area, your issues, your problem areas, and what would be effective for you to do together. So I'd be happy to explore those things with you. I have a People who want to come in person can see me in New York City or in Westport, Connecticut. Others may prefer to have session by Zoom or telephone or FaceTime or things like that. So that's possible too, especially during this coronavirus situation. So whatever works for you is I'm open to explore with you. But I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have about what this therapy is like.